The evidence shared today within the YNW Melly trial left him stressed out inside of the courtroom. Even moments of him hiding his face as the prosecutors revealed evidence of YNW Melly admitting to the crime. With the lead detective on the stand today against Melly, he would reveal this text message to the entire world.
The PC Gambino account asked him if he was okay, and his response was, "I did that," and placed a smiley face emoji.
And the next message from 10/26/2018 at 16:02 from Eastern Standard Time. The YNW Melly count says what?
After that, SHHHH.
And could you please stand and point on the right side of the screen exactly which part you're saying where the YNW Melly account says, "I did that"?
I did that. This is the thread ID. This is the text. This is the author. And this is the recipient. Then you come down here, same thing. The ID is for the actual message, which is just specific to that one message. Then the thread ID is the actual continuing message.
For more context, hours after the passings in 2018, somebody would message YNW Melly on Instagram asking, "Hey, are you okay? Tell me something." Where YNW Melly would literally reply saying, "I did that," with a happy face emoji. Now, once this was being shared within the courtroom, YNW Melly was seen covering his face, looking embarrassed and looking as if he just wants to give up now. This would also be their last piece of evidence to show the jury, which does make sense as it does make YNW Melly look the most guilty.
So the state has officially rested their case on the YNW Melly trial. And starting tomorrow at 9 a.m., Melly's defense team will bring in their witnesses. Now it seems as though Melly's attorneys are going to be offering a very short defense because according to the judge, sometime on Wednesday or Thursday, they're going to be doing their closing arguments and then the jury will be sequestered to finally take the case, which means the jury gets to deliberate and determine whether Melly's going to be found guilty or innocent. Now, Melly's attorneys did file a motion for a judgment of acquittal. So essentially, Melly's attorneys are arguing that the reason why they asked for the motion for a judgment of acquittal is because the prosecutor has a circumstantial-based case, but the circumstantial-based case is only going to lead the jury to start trying to take that Swiss cheese and fill in those holes themselves. Because the prosecutor, according to Melly's defense, has not offered the jury any substantive evidence to be able to fill those holes.
However, it was now time for YNW Melly's lawyers to cross-examine the lead detective. Melly's lawyers realized this detective did some questionable police work to YNW Melly's manager.
Did you, as a trained investigator, Jameson Francois to be deported to Haiti, even though he's been in this country since 5 years?
Yes, sir.
Did you, in fact, that he would not get fed and get any medicine in the jails?
I don't know about that in the conversations.
Do you think a witness who tells you something that you don't like really gets to the truth?
Objection or irrelevant.
When you questioned Jameson Francois, were you alone or did you bring immigration officers with you?
We were at the Chrome Detention Center, so of course the immigration officers had to be there.
However, why is it so important that 100K Track was involved in this case? YNW Melly's lawyers are angry at this lead detective for going at 100K Track so aggressively. This is because 100K Track is the one that gave that lead detective YNW Melly's cell phone. He had no choice or else he would be kicked out of the United States. That cell phone he gave contains practically 90% of the evidence that the prosecutors are using against Melly. On the cell phone, it also contained very incriminating text messages between YNW Melly and his girlfriend, if you really read through the lines.
Moving on to Friday, November 9th, 2029, 20 UTC, 2018. Message from Melly, Montana to, again, that baby. What does that one say?
You don't with me anyways. I peeped it. You can slide, but God knows I wasn't in her and real breaking. You spoiled everything was given to you. You act like a some slide. I keep Borton with cuz at the
As YNW Melly is seen stating that he will remain loyal to Bortland all the way until the end. His girlfriend was saying she will break up with him if he doesn't stop being friends with Bortland. He mentions, hey, Bortland did one of the realest things in my life. I'll never switch up on him. Now I wonder what that might just be. Also on YNW Melly's cell phone was the confession video of him turning himself in, stating that people are coming after him.
There's also video number 1, 2, 3, 4. And in that video, Mr. Devins uses a that I don't want, that I think will be inflammatory, and on 403 grounds we would object. It refers.
Play it again.
Sure.
Hello, so everybody. This is real footage. My name is Melvin, and I'm gonna turn myself in, but I'm in a suitcase because these are arresting me, and I have to get on a private jet, and I don't want them to see.
Alongside on the cell phone was a very important Facebook Live that YNW Melly downloaded to his cell phone, as it reveals YNW Melly and YNW Bortland's reactions only 6 hours after the crime was done. As the report states, the Stranger Things jacket YNW Melly is wearing in this video just hours after the crime is the same one that Juvie had on when they left the recording studio early on that morning. YNW Bortland is also wearing the one Sack Chaser had on too.
Melly still turned regardless of what happened this early morning. He's still out here being very positive. Turned still. Hey! No, still turned. Regardless of what happened, you already know.
With 100K Track knowing this cell phone may have just locked up YNW Melly for the rest of his life, he had to do an interview and share his side of everything, where he would answer many important questions.
Who would want Melly and his friends? Did anybody ever threaten him and the other guys before this happened? You know, Bortland said this was a drive-by.
When you in the limelight and you're making money and things like that, you're gonna receive hate. You're gonna receive, gonna receive things from everywhere, from people you know, people you don't know, people who probably feel obligated or feel, entitled to things, people who might not even know you from the campaign and just don't like you. So, as an entertainer, your life is always, being somebody or someone.
Around the time the crime happened, YNW Melly's music career was beginning to take off. He was continuing, however, to record at local recording studios, with very little to no security at all. It is very possible that someone could have known the location of YNW Melly at the time of the crime. It is very possible because at the same time of the crime occurring, YNW Melly was being recruited by 3 street teams, according to cell phone evidence shown inside of the courtroom.
Now, Melly's defense is now entering into cross-examination of Danny Polo. And what Danny is admitting on the stand, now Danny Polo had admitted that YNW Melly was actually being recruited by 2 different sets. And based off of the text message thread between the different individuals trying to recruit Melly, Melly was not replying. Melly stated weeks later that he was so busy doing radio interviews and shows that he just didn't have time to reply. And if you go back and read the text messages, those recruiters were basically begging Melly to reply back. And he didn't, because Melly was an up-and-coming rapper who had a ton of money and ambition, and any of these different groups would love to have him under their roster. Because Melly wasn't interested in being a he was being labeled as somebody who was false flagging. It's possible that it was Shine that did the drive, all because Melly didn't want to be a part of their group.
However, 100K Track would get into more detail about if it was truly a drive-by or not, and who would have done it.
Bortland said this was a drive-by. Have you ever thought about who would have done something like this?
It would have been so much people, you know what I'm saying? It could have been so much people, because at the end of the day, this man was had jewelry, had a large sum of money and things like that, and don't know where it could have came from, but I do know it came from somewhere, and maybe one day we'll use our resources to find out who really did it and bring justice to the.
The answer of knowing that YNW Melly had cash as well as diamond jewelry on him at the recording studio could be a very valid reason for someone to target him. Florida is known to be a very high crime area. Knowing a group of rappers are sitting at a local recording studio with stacks of cash, including diamond jewelry, with zero security is a golden ticket for many street members. As whether it's for social media clout or even just overall street cred for going after Melly, this type of situation can benefit a lot of people that live the street type of lifestyle. However, the conversation would get deeper. She would then ask the chances of YNW Bortland doing this crime instead of Melly.
Some people think Bortland did this. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I know one thing. You got two innocent people for their life. You got two, friends and family members that's unfortunately lost it in the situation. And at the end of the day, justice do need to be served. I understand that completely. But I feel like everybody from state to the prosecution, they're looking in the wrong direction, because at the end of the day, they got two people in there for their life that did nothing but love and appreciate, those two individuals.
The interesting part is that YNW Melly's lawyers have been mentioning Bortland's name throughout this trial almost daily, mentioning that he lied to the feds, mentioning that Bortland was the last one with Juvie and Sack Chaser on this night, etc. All in hopes of making YNW Melly not look like the overall guilty one. However, a topic that has been mentioned countless times is does YNW Melly actually have mixed personalities? And if so, could it be used as an advantage point inside of this trial?
I asked Track about whether Melly truly believes he has two personalities or whether it's part of his act.
If he had two personalities for real, I think that would have been way before, the music and all that stuff. But nah, the Melvin persona, come from just him being creative and just giving people something to be entertained by and stuff like that. Certain records that he would do, it would be love songs. He would put that as Melly, and in certain records there'd be more edge and street. They put under Melvin.
Lawyers mention if the prosecutors had major convincing evidence against Melly, then the mixed personalities definitely could have came into play. However, it is important to note with how deep we are into the Melly trial, the fact that his lawyers haven't mentioned it means that it won't be coming up. But while on the topic of no major evidence against Melly, 100K Track would reveal YNW Melly's plan if he was to beat the case.
If Melly gets out, what's in the future?
Everything, the world, every continent, every piece of everywhere in the States. That's the plan.
And what about Bortland?
Same thing. They took 5 years of these kids' life, man. 5 years is a long time. So hopefully they could get that back every year.
However, as good as his interview was, trying to prove that YNW Melly is innocent, the evidence is just a little too much, as a report would be shared of. Forensic expert Sergeant Williams in the YNW Melly case explains how it couldn't have been a drive-by.
Assignment, which is to determine if this is a drive-by. And my determination was that this is not a drive-by, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. All of these rounds are done. One is done at a stationary position. At a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in. The one round that has some movement in it, which is round site L here, the actually moving in that to create the little bit of a that you see there.
Okay, a lot of information in that answer, so let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned so I'm gonna zoom in on site F.
He took note of every single hole inside of the vehicle and then would use what is called the stick method to find out how the holes were created, including the direction of where it came from, including the angle. So he can prove that all of these came from YNW Melly's seat.
Number, you said 17 outside the car. How many rounds were inside the car?
3.
And can you exclude the for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas as coming from outside of the car?
Yes. From the driver's side back seat.
As to the shot that Christopher Thomas, where did that emanate from?
Driver's side back seat.
Okay. Is it possible for there to have been two inside that car?
No.
Why not?
There is no time.
So is Sergeant Williams practically guaranteeing that this crime must have happened from the person in the back left seat of the vehicle? They would then call up YNW Juvie's mother to the stand, so then she can confirm where YNW Juvie was sitting in the car, as well as where YNW Melly was as well.
Are you related to one of the kids in this case?
Yes, I am.
How so?
I'm his mother,
And who is that?
Christopher Thomas.
Pause it at 2:19:15. Ms. Phillips, did you see who entered into the occupants who entered into that gray Jeep?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you recognize where your son entered that gray Jeep?
Yes.
Which seat, if you can identify for the jury?
He got in the back seat on the right hand side.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Jamel.
And Jamel, is that the defendant, Jamel Demons?
Yes, ma'am.
With the jury now hearing how the crime happened inside of the vehicle and where, alongside YNW Juvie's mother revealing where YNW Melly was seated, it seemed as if nothing else could get worse. Well, it ends up getting worse, as we would see a man named Trayvon Glass take the witness stand. Now, Trayvon was with the YNW crew on the night of the crime while at the recording studio. He was, quote, street security, if you really know what that means. Thankfully for Trayvon, he went into the red Jeep that was parked right beside YNW Melly's car when leaving the recording studio. According to Trayvon, the plan was for them to all meet back at a fellow rapper named Fredo Bang's house. The red car arrived to the house, however YNW Melly's vehicle never showed up. The record would show that only Bortland took Sack Chaser and Juvie to the hospital after the crime happened. Meanwhile, the prosecutors revealed that YNW Melly called Fredo Bang to pick him up off the side of the street.
And Chris Thomas are. So what you're also going to find out is while Mr. Devins is out there on the side of the road, 4 in the morning, 4:42 specifically, he sends a drop pin, digital homing beacon, to his current location, to one of his friends, Frederick Givens. Frederick Givens is also involved in the music industry, and he asked to be picked up. Frederick Givens, then, about 11 minutes later, is sent another drop pin where Mr. Demons has moved a couple of meters. What you're going to find out as well, though, is these digital leashes, they have more than just phone calls.
With evidence confirming that Melly was picked up by rapper Fredo Bang, it wasn't until Trayvon noticed that Melly had changed his clothing from when he left the recording studio.
Okay. Was that the first time you saw Melly after you guys left the studio?
Yeah.
Was Melly wearing the same clothes or different clothes than when you saw him at the studio?
It was a new day. Nah, he wasn't.
Nah, he wasn't. You guys
Wasn't wearing the same clothes.
Okay. Do you recall what he was wearing?
Just had on some shorts.
And
As this without a doubt made YNW Melly look extremely guilty to the jury. As it was mentioned earlier on in the trial, YNW Bortland changed his clothing before dropping off Sack Chaser and Juvie at the local hospital. So with YNW Melly doing the same, it really makes you wonder why they both had to change their clothing on this night. However, it wasn't all bad for Melly with Trayvon on the stand. As he mentioned, he didn't notice any friction between Melly, Sack Chaser, and Juvie while at the recording studio.
You don't know of any friction between Melly and Anthony Day Williams at any time?
I don't know.
And you don't know of any friction between Melly and Christopher Thomas at any time?
I don't know.
You didn't see any friction between that night of any magnitude?
I did.
You did?
I didn't.
Although it is very possible that Trayvon would only mention this during the trial due to people texting him while he was on the stand inside of this trial. You see, the YNW Melly trial is a live stream on YouTube. As while Trayvon was on the stand, he was saying some incriminating things about YNW Melly. This would make people start texting him, and his phone continued to vibrate during the trial. As during the recess, he would respond to those messages and then get yelled at by the judge.
So Trayvon Glass has been really active on Instagram since he finished his testimony today. So he posted this on Instagram, and you can pause to read it, but in a nutshell, he basically said, "I'm not a rat, and if I am, come and me." And just before he took the witness stand, he posted this image, and it's with Sack Chaser and Juvie in it. So I guess that's in commemoration. I mean, he was friends with these two guys. And then he proceeded to post this video by Charleston White with a caption that says, "Bruh bug." And in the video, Charleston White is basically talking about, if you me up, he's gonna basically snitch to the prosecutors. So I'm curious as to who Trayvon Glass thinks is gonna him up for testifying. Now remember, he did take a phone call while he was in court, and that's when the judge had asked him, basically, who are you talking to? Trayvon had explained it was his brother calling, and he was just concerned about his whereabouts. In my opinion, it sounds like a number of people probably didn't want Trayvon Glass to testify today, so I'm curious as to who it was.
All right, you're looking at me now. All right, thank you. I wasn't here. I left the office, left the bench to come. We're in recess, came back in, and counsel suggested to me that you're on the phone and you read something and you're discussing something on the phone. Is that true?
It's true.
Yes, so did it have anything to do with this case?
Not at all.
So was it some other business or?
So it's me texting. So,
you were texting? Were you texting about the case?
not about it.
What were you texting?
Texting saying that this wild. That's all I said.
I didn't hear you.
I said things are wild. That's all I said.
Things are wild.
It's wild.
Anything else?
That's it.
And did you have a conversation with someone?
My brother called.